Hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well and excited to learn something new today. If you're someone who wants to speak English fluently, confidently, and naturally, then this lesson is for you. Today, I am going to teach you how to think in English, which is one of the most important steps to becoming a fluent English speaker. We all know how frustrating it can be when we have to stop and translate sentences from our native language into English before speaking. It slows us down, makes us feel less confident, and often leads to mistakes. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could skip that translation process and just think in English from the start? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's possible. By following 4 simple stages, you can train your brain to think directly in English, and trust me, this will make a huge difference in how you speak. Before we start, if you haven't already, this way, you won't miss any of our lessons that will help you on your journey to speaking fluent English. Now, let's get into today's lesson, how to think in English. Stage 1. Think in verbs. The power of action words. The first stage of learning to think in English is to focus on verbs. Verbs are the action words in a sentence. They describe what's happening. Why do we start with verbs? Because action is all around us, and if we can think about what's happening in English, we can start forming sentences in our heads more quickly. Let's take an example. Imagine you are walking through New York City, specifically in Central Park. You see people everywhere, all engaged in different activities. What are they doing? Some people are running, others are talking. You see a dog chasing a ball, and someone is feeding pigeons. These actions are described using verbs: run, talk, chase, feed. By observing the actions around you, you can start thinking about them in English. This process of observing and identifying actions is something you can do anywhere. Whether you're standing at a bus stop in London, waiting at a traffic light, or sitting in a cafe in Paris, there are always actions happening around you. For example, on a busy street in Tokyo, you might see people walking quickly, someone riding a bicycle, or a group of friends laughing. You can mentally note these actions in English: walk, ride, laugh. But what if you're at home where there's not much happening? You can still practice thinking in verbs by imagining scenarios or using pictures. For instance, look at a photo of a family picnic. What actions do you see? Maybe they are eating, playing, or relaxing. Even when you're indoors, you can practice identifying actions by thinking about what you might do in different situations. Imagine you're in your kitchen. You might be cooking, cleaning, or washing dishes. Key practice tip: set aside 5 to 10 minutes each day to practice thinking in verbs. Pick a different place each day and focus on the actions happening around you. As you do this regularly, you'll train your brain to think about actions in English, making it easier to describe what's happening in the moment. Stage 2. Think in nouns, naming the world around you. Once you've practiced thinking in verbs, it's time to move on to nouns. Nouns are words that name people, places, things, or ideas. Just like verbs, nouns are everywhere. Everything around you has a name, and if you can think of these names in English, you'll be one step closer to thinking and speaking fluently. Let's take an example from a different city. Imagine you're in Sydney, Australia, standing by the famous Sydney Opera House. As you look around, you see the building, the harbor, and many tourists taking photos. You also see a boat in the water and a few seagulls flying above. Each of these things is a noun: building, harbor, tourists, boat, seagulls. It's important to practice thinking in nouns wherever you are. If you're at a market in Delhi, India, you might see fruits, vegetables, spices, and vendors. These are all nouns that describe the objects and people around you. Even if you're just sitting in your room, you can look around and identify nouns. For example, you might see a table, a chair, a book, and a laptop. Another great way to practice thinking in nouns is to describe what you're carrying with you. What's in your bag? Maybe you have a phone, some keys, and a wallet. If you practice naming these objects in English, it will soon become second nature. Over time, this will help you think faster and more clearly in English. Key practice tip: spend a few minutes each day naming the objects around you in English. Whether you're outside, at home, or even traveling, challenge yourself to identify everything in English. For instance, if you're visiting Barcelona, Spain, look around and name things like buildings, bicycles, cafes, and tourists. The more you practice this, the more your brain will automatically think in English. Stage 3. Think in sentences. Connecting verbs and nouns. Once you're comfortable thinking in verbs and nouns, it's time to move on to the next step. Thinking in sentences. This is where you start putting verbs and nouns together to describe what's happening around you in full sentences. At this stage, it's important to start simple. Don't worry about making long, complicated sentences. Just focus on creating short, clear sentences that describe what you see. For example, if you're in Cape Town, South Africa, looking at Table Mountain, you might say, "The tourists are climbing the mountain. The sun is shining. The wind is blowing." These are simple, but they allow you to practice thinking in complete sentences. Now, let's imagine you're in Toronto, Canada, sitting in a park. What's happening around you? You could describe the scene like this. A family is having a picnic. The children are playing with a ball. The birds are flying in the sky. These sentences are short, but they effectively describe what's happening around you. As you become more comfortable, you can start making your sentences longer. For example, if you're in Berlin, Germany, walking near the Brandenburg Gate, you might say, "A group of tourists is taking pictures of the monument. Some of them are listening to their tour guide, while others are checking their maps." This sentence combines multiple verbs and nouns, giving a fuller description of the scene. The goal here is to get used to thinking in sentences instead of just words. This will help you when you're speaking, as you won't have to stop and think about each individual word. Your brain will automatically form sentences in English. Key practice tip: every day. Take 10 to 15 minutes to describe your surroundings in sentences. Whether you're at home, in the office, or walking through a new city, try to form complete sentences in your head that describe what's happening. If you're in a cafe in Rome, Italy, you might say, "The waiter is serving coffee. Two friends are chatting at the next table. A couple is reading a menu." This practice will make thinking in English much more natural. Stage 4. Think in paragraphs. Bringing it all together, the final stage is to move from thinking in sentences to thinking in paragraphs. This means describing everything around you in more detail, telling a full story, or creating a more vivid picture of the scene. Imagine you're visiting the Great Wall of China. Here's how you might describe it in a paragraph. "I'm standing on the Great Wall, and the view is incredible. The mountains stretch out as far as I can see, and the wall winds its way across the landscape. There are tourists all around me, taking pictures and walking along the wall. I can hear people speaking in different languages, and there's a cool breeze blowing through the air. The steps are steep, and the stone is worn from centuries of use." In this paragraph, you've combined everything: verbs, walking, speaking, nouns, tourists, mountains, wall, and sentences to create a full description of the scene. By practicing this, you start thinking in English more naturally, as you won't just be forming short sentences, You'll be able to describe things in full detail. Let's take another example. Imagine you're walking through a bustling market in Istanbul, Turkey. You might describe the scene like this. The market is filled with people, all busy shopping and bargaining with the vendors. I can smell the spices in the air, and the bright colors of the rugs and textiles catch my eye. A man is selling tea from a cart, and groups of tourists are taking photos. The sound of people talking and laughing fills the air, and the atmosphere is lively and energetic. When you practice thinking in paragraphs like this, you're training your brain to describe events and scenes in full detail without stopping to translate from your native language. This stage is essential because it helps you not only think in English, but also express your thoughts in a more coherent and fluent way. By focusing on forming paragraphs, you can talk more naturally and at length, which is key when you're aiming for fluency. Let's take one more example to practice. Imagine you're sitting in a cozy cafe in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Here's how you might describe the scene in a paragraph. I'm sitting at a small table by the window, sipping my coffee. The cafe is warm and inviting, with soft music playing in the background. Outside, I can see people riding their bicycles along the canal. The sky is cloudy, and it looks like it might rain soon. Inside, a few people are reading books, and a couple is chatting quietly over their breakfast. By practicing thinking in paragraphs like this, you'll develop the ability to describe more complex situations naturally and fluently in English. The smell of freshly baked bread fills the air, and the atmosphere is calm and peaceful. In this paragraph, you've combined all the elements, verbs, nouns, and sentences to create a vivid picture of the scene. This is the final stage of thinking in English, where you can describe situations in detail just as you would in your native language. Final practice tip: take a few minutes to describe your day in a paragraph. Start from the moment you woke up and think about everything that happened. What did you do? Where did you go? Who did you meet? Try to describe it all in English. For example, today was a busy day. I woke up early and went for a walk in the park. The weather was nice, and I saw a lot of people exercising. After that, I had breakfast at a small cafe. I ordered a cappuccino and a croissant. Later, I went to work and had a meeting with my team. We discussed our new project, and everyone had great ideas. In the evening, I met a friend for dinner at a restaurant. We had a great time catching up and talking about our week. This type of daily practice will not only help you think in English, but also improve your ability to recall and describe events in detail. Putting it all together, achieving fluency through practice by now, you should have a clear understanding of the 4 stages of thinking in English. Think in verbs, focus on action words, and describe what is happening around you. Think in nouns, name the people, places, and things you see in your surroundings. Think in sentences, combine verbs and nouns to form short, simple sentences. Think in paragraphs, bring everything together to create detailed descriptions of scenes and events. Each of these stages builds on the previous one, helping you develop the ability to think directly in English without the need for translation. It's important to practice each stage regularly, as this will train your brain to process information in English more naturally. Why thinking in English is essential for fluency. Now that you understand the stages, let's talk about why this method works. When you first start learning English, you likely translate from your native language. This is natural, but it creates a delay in your speaking. Instead of speaking smoothly, you have to pause and think about what to say, which can make you feel less confident. By practicing thinking in English, you eliminate that translation step. Your thoughts will naturally form in English, making your speech faster and more fluid. When you can think in English, You'll also find it easier to have conversations, express your ideas, and respond quickly in discussions. For example, imagine you're at a job interview in London, and the interviewer asks you to describe a challenging situation you faced at work. If you're thinking in your native language, you might need a moment to translate your thoughts into English. But if you've trained yourself to think in English, you can respond immediately and confidently, without hesitation. The same goes for everyday conversations. Whether you're chatting with friends, giving a presentation, or even ordering food at a restaurant, being able to think in English will make the process much smoother. Practical exercises to help you think in English now that you've learned the 4 stages. Here are some practical exercises you can do to improve your ability to think in English daily. Observation. Spend 10 to 15 minutes each day observing your surroundings and describing them in English. Whether you're on the bus, at the park, or walking through your neighborhood, challenge yourself to describe everything you see using verbs, nouns, and sentences. Picture descriptions. Find a photo from a magazine, website, or your own photo album. Look at the picture closely and describe everything you see in English. For example, if you're looking at a picture of a beach, you could say, "The sand is white and the water is crystal clear. There are a few people swimming, and some children are building a sandcastle. In the distance, I can see a boat sailing on the horizon." Write a journal. At the end of each day, write a short journal entry in English. Start by describing what you did that day, where you went, and who you met. As you practice, try to include more details in your descriptions. Talk to yourself. If you don't have anyone to practice speaking English with, you can practice by talking to yourself. Pick a topic and try to talk about it for a few minutes. For example, you could describe your favorite movie, explain how to make your favorite dish, or talk about your plans for the weekend. Set language challenges. Challenge yourself to think in English for short periods throughout the day. For example, set a timer for 5 minutes and commit to thinking only in English during that time. Gradually increase the time as you become more comfortable. Final thoughts. The road to fluency learning to think in English is a journey, and it requires patience and consistent practice. The more you engage with the language, the more natural it will feel to think, speak, and express yourself in English. By following the 4 stages, verbs, nouns, sentences, and paragraphs, you'll build a strong foundation for fluency. Remember, the key to success is consistency. Practice every day, even if it's just for a few minutes, and you'll definitely see improvement over time. It's normal to make mistakes along the way, but don't let that discourage you. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow. Ready to take the next step? So, are you ready to take the next step on your English learning journey? Start practicing today, and soon you'll be thinking in English like a native speaker. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming lessons. Keep practicing, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next lesson.